been a while since we've talked about a movie, even though with our editing timeline, I don't think it's been like 2 months since we recorded something.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We did a lot of good work. We had a backlog, I guess. Oh, sorry. We shot a lot of footage, and I guess you spent a lot of time editing them.
I don't think the people care about my suffering, but yeah.
No, I mean, I don't even care about your suffering. So
anyway, so here we are now after a long time.
So now we're going to talk about name of the film is
Thing from Another World.
I think so.
It's confusing because there's like three movies.
The Thing from Another World.
There's like three movies that sound the same. There's another one.
It Came from Outer Space. The Thing from Outer Space. The Thing from Another Time and Space. It Came Today After Tomorrow.
What did you think of the movie?
Well, one, there's a big time gap in between the last movie that we watched.
So the last movie we watched was
Things to Come.
Things to Come, which was 1936. So we have a 15-year gap.
And this is 1951, yeah. So
big things happen in the world between this.
Yeah. The color TV was invented.
Super glue.
Duct tape.
A lot of big world events.
The Slinky.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that informs this movie as well.
Yeah. You can really see the effects of, silly putty. Ditch the bit. It's not working. Ditch it. Okay, so you asked me what is my initial impression. So what I'll say is, I feel like I say this every time, which makes sense, but it's gotten really close to, I guess, like an actual movie, like modern storytelling, visual storytelling in movies, and it didn't feel as like, I guess the stereotype that I have, at least of those kind of older movies, is like it's kind of wooden or slow paced or boring. The pacing on this and like the dialogue was like, it's pretty quippy, it's pretty fast, it's like the pacing's pretty good, pretty snappy. I think like they're like kind of always moving on to, for the most part, and moving on to like the next thing. So in that sense, I found it pretty enjoyable, but it still like I wouldn't say that it like holds up to like a modern viewer.
Maybe.
Like I don't think that just like a person watching it now would find it like interesting just all on its own. I'm kind of waiting for that point to happen. I'm kind of waiting for the point where it's like, hey, like a regular guy from this year, yeah, you should watch this movie. It's pretty good. You'll like it. It hasn't, I don't think it's gotten there yet. This is still in the realm of like, hey, do you like film history? Do you want to know about the prequel to like the 1982 The Thing? This is it. Oh, really? You know?
Maybe. I guess you're right.
Divorced from those aspects, I don't feel like it provides a lot of entertainment in and of itself to a modern audience. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm mostly with you there. So I feel the same way. It was
like it was kind of funny at times. Like, like they had some jokes and some like quips in it. I was like, that's pretty.
And it helps. It's an 80-minute movie. It goes by really fast. And the first thing I thought was when it first started was, oh wow, this feels much more modern. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that goes a lot to just how much maybe World War II affected the 20th century. You know, there's like things before World War II and after. And we can maybe talk about the specifics when we talk about special effects and those things. But I feel kind of like you do. The one thing I'll say is there's a little bit more nuance now where, you know, we're in our 30s. And so for us, I think nostalgia is like when we were in 90s stuff. And our parents, for them, I would say nostalgia is maybe, 50s and 60s movies.
Do you think so? No.
Sort of. So
parents weren't alive in the 50s. For like barely, maybe.
Right.
Like,
but those kinds of movies, I think maybe
their parents watched them.
Right. Or maybe people a few years older than us, their parents watched them. So I think we're kind of getting to a point where
like we're reaching living memories, what you're saying?
Right. We have some relation to the movies
we've met
that we're
people
watching.
that saw those movies when they came out.
Yes. Because this movie, more than anything else, when I saw it, it felt more like one of those older war movies.
That's true.
More than it felt like, some monster of the week movie that I kind of expected.
Yeah, I did get that impression like when they first started too. I was like, this reminds me of like a 60s like Battle of the Bulge like war movie or something.
Right. And so I think at least our parents or that generation is more used to kind of watching that. So maybe for that reason, you can't maybe tell a 20-year-old like, hey, watch this, it's good. But maybe somebody of our age who watched movies like this with their parents would have some nostalgia, ironically, watching it.
I'm just saying you wouldn't turn to your friend and be like,
No.
hey, give it a watch. It's pretty, you know,
I wouldn't.
do that. I'm just saying we're going to reach a point where it's like, hey, this movie's it's just good now. Like, just watch it. Like, you don't have to have an interest in whatever. It doesn't matter that it's connected to this. It doesn't matter, you know, like it wasn't the first time that whatever they use this blocking technique. It's like, no, it's just a good, you like the movie, like regardless. Yeah. We'll reach that point somewhere. 2001 is in there somewhere. I know it.
So just to explain this movie, it's based on a book or a novella that was written in 1938. It was called...
And explain the difference between a book and a novella.
I can't.
Nah.
It's shorter. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So this novella, it was called Who Goes There? And, you know, I kind of read a little bit of it because I didn't want to spoil myself too much. But I would say that the novella was a little bit more psychological in nature compared to this. In any case,
that makes sense.
It was based on that. This is an 80-minute movie. And the basic plot is this. We're at the North Pole and something has crash landed into the ice. A group of army officers and scientists go. They look at what it is. They end up discovering, oh my goodness, alien life. They bring it back. It gets loose and they have to defend themselves, eventually killing this alien life in the process.
I would say that this movie has a lot of the trappings. Like if you said, hey, just crap out like a generic 1950s science fiction B movie, a lot of the trappings of those kinds of movies are found in here. I feel like this executes them better than those things do. But it's like something crashes from space, alien, the army is like trying to investigate and stop it. Scientists are trying to investigate it. And then they come up with some sort of like jerry-rigged, like its weakness was water or something like to stop it at the end.
Yeah.
I feel like this is executed better. I don't know if it was executed. I think all those movies were like around at the same time. I don't think this like invented any of that stuff. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you just want to compare to the things that we've seen, we saw Frankenstein and Invisible Man, where there's a creature out there that has some kind of power or whatever, and, you know, a group of regular people sort of have to defeat it.
What I was reading is that like this was one of the first things that kind of melded like sci-fi and horror together in a way that would kind of pave the way for like, you know, like Alien.
I definitely got Alien vibes here.
Yeah, you know. And then also what I was gathering from my scant research is that like this was produced by like a legitimate company and producer and like director. So they had some of these like kind of trashy sci-fi B movies around at the time, but this kind of like lended more legitimacy to those because it was like done by like well-regarded people. So they kind of like legitimized science fiction a little bit.
And it shows. I mean, this movie, I don't know if it's just the fact that it was filmed in the 50s and things have just sort of evolved in the film space, but it doesn't feel like one of those hokey, I guess, sci-fi movies. It feels like a normal movie.
Yeah.
One of the big things with the plot, I mean, that is kind of what happened. But one thing that kind of struck me was just how nonchalant they were about the entire thing.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to talk about that too. Like they discover like a UFO crashed in the ice. They identify that it's an alien craft like within seconds, seemingly.
And it's like they were expecting it. They're like, well, we knew UFOs existed and eventually we'd find a moon man. And I guess we did it today. We're the guys. All right.
Yeah, like they really passed over it almost without comment. They're like, we found an alien spaceship. This is the first alien that anyone's ever seen. Hey, by the way, there's freaking aliens out there.
So this thing crash lands and they're very scientific about it, like how they found it, etc. They get to the crash site and then they're going to melt it out of the ice, which I don't know what they're going to do once they have it, you know, in front of them. Like they can't like drag it back or anything.
Yeah.
In any case, they accidentally destroy it with the thermite that they used. Yes. And the ship blows up and they're only left with, you know, the alien from inside the ship. But their reaction to this is like jokes. It's like, oh man, you're getting in trouble for blowing up that alien spaceship. Yeah, I guess. Like the gravitas of finding life is completely missing.
Yeah, it was weird. Like it was almost to the point where I'm like, did they know what they found? Because they don't care. I was like, did they know? Did they know what it is? Like, I was kind of waiting for that moment. Like, hey, I no longer believe in Jesus because we found a Mars man. But like, everyone's kind of like, yeah, you know, it's like if they found like a colony of penguins out there that was like hereto undiscovered, the reaction is about the same. Like, all right.
Well, Okay, I'm gonna go read a book, but yeah, keep us posted. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'll get to it when I. Yeah.
So the nonchalance was just staggering.
Through the whole time.
Even when, so later on, basically they get the alien out from this and they have it in kind of in a block of ice, and they accidentally thaw the alien to where it escapes. And one of the characters, shoots at it and then like runs to the others. And, there's a lot of cacophony. The music is swelling. And he gets into the other room and he's like, guys, oh my God, where's the captain? And everybody else just like, what happened? He's like, the alien escaped. He's like, and the other people, there's no dread or drama.
Cut to that?
They're not worried that it's like chasing him or anything. They're just like, huh, all right.
It's so funny. I don't know if it's just like a sign of the times, but the main character, I don't even know what his name is because they're all like guys in bomber jackets. I don't know what any of their names are.
Yeah.
McCafferty, McLaren, McPherson. Is that his name? I don't even know the main guy's name. Oh, Hendry. That's right, of course. Well, whatever. So like the main captain, he's very stentorian.
Dry, maybe.
Very dry, but he's also like very like, I'm the father. I know what to do at all times. I never lose my cool.
Sure, but not in like more like he's authoritative, but he gets it. Like he jokes with everybody. He's not, he's not.
No, he's not like a stiff or anything, but it's just like the guy runs in. It's like, hey, an electric blanket heated up this ice block, releasing an alien that attacked me. I shot it a couple times. It did nothing. And then his first reaction, he like immediately knows what to do. He's like, oh, in this situation, you got to do this, this, and this. Let's go.
Yeah. And
not like, what?
I'll say that's both a pro and a con of the movie. So that kind of leads into the next thing. What I like about this movie is the science and the logic applied to it. Like logic reigns supreme. There's some overarching things that maybe don't make sense, but overall, they see this alien ship. They make like a little circle around it. They're able to ascertain like how big the ship was. They explain like with words what they're doing. When they make a decision, they explain it. It's like, hey, we're gonna keep on this block of ice. We're gonna wait for orders. Everybody keep watch. Or later on when they start talking about the creature, everything is very explained. And then when they fight it, they explain, we're gonna electrocute it using this technique. And or even in the very beginning when they're like, hey, how did you know where the creature was? They even explain sort of the math that went into figuring out the coordinates of where the ship crash landed. So I like that, but I guess like you're saying, the problem is when you do that enough, it takes away some of the emotion, I guess, and it makes them more calculating than maybe you would be in real life.
Yeah, if they were dealing with like a different kind of phenomenon that wasn't so literally earth-shattering, like a volcano was gonna go off and they had a thing that like is a hard problem to deal with that threatens your life, but is not like existentially uprooting. You know what I mean? It would fit more, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. Like you said, I really enjoyed that too. That like logic was like front and center. They do everything in like a methodical manner and they explain what they're doing, and everyone's kind of just like working together as a team to like figure out what it is. What do we do? They have like a plan at all times. It doesn't always work, but like they have a plan and it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's never that scene where like one guy's like, I don't know, man. I got to get out of here. And then he jumps out the window and like lets the thing in,
Thank God.
Like that never happens.
Right. And some of my favorite scenes were when they were trying to brace the doors, they made these like triangles or.
Yeah. Like they just did everything like.
The photographer never got a picture, but he was given the chances and they mentioned it. Like, did you get your photo? No.
Yeah.
And I was like, why didn't, this propagate later?
You know what I'll say about the thermite just been blowing up this alien spacecraft, which, oh my God, like hundreds of years of scientific progress, like gone. And again, they're just like,
they could have just waited. Like there's no reason to do that.
Well, they didn't know it was going to blow. I don't even know why it blew up.
But why were they going to even?
I don't know. Why didn't they just dig it out of the ice?
Later.
Why do they have to get in there? I don't know. I think from a film standpoint, they probably just didn't want to mess with it. You know what I mean? But I'm like, why did they even have it why did they just have it crash and it was exploded that way? And then all they found was the Martian guy. Why have this thing where it's like...
So maybe you don't like these things when they happen in movies, but I like the slow reveals of what they're finding. So the first half of the movie, I'll say, honestly, the visuals are a nice addition, but you could probably just listen to it. And because of how, like, I guess forthcoming they are with their thought process and what they're doing, you can kind of just listen to it and get most of the story that way. But I like the slow reveal where they're slowly figuring out like, oh, it's a circle. Is this a UFO? I like that. That's a nice fun build up.
I did like that. I just felt like it was kind of goofy the way that it just kind of evaporated.
Maybe. I mean, you could say, oh, it has like some self-destruct sequence, or they didn't realize they were going to set off some reaction. I don't know.
Honestly, to me, it would have been like almost the same if they just kept it like that. They're just like, okay, we'll have to come get it out of the ice later. And they just left with the Martian Man.
Maybe, but then you have this like thread at the end of it.
Oh,
where
I see.
This has to be like a closed story. You know, no pictures, nothing.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
You got those shavings, I guess, from the metal.
I guess I just felt like it was a little goofy that the ship just blew up. They couldn't like recover pieces of it to like study, you know, like nothing.
Well, I think we like long form content where all this is explored, but if you have to have a closed movie, kind of can't.
Because I definitely get that like logical, like they're a group of rational people that talk about this thing, figure out what to do, and they do it. Yeah,
and I think, I think World War II also helped with this a little bit. There were some new technologies, and maybe the audience wasn't as exposed to them, and so usually when you think of sci-fi, there's a lot of elements that the audience, nobody knows about, right? It's fantasy. It's completely made up. There's really nothing to explain. But I think some of the elements in this one, like the thermite, maybe like the Geiger counter, these things, it's, sort of emerging technologies, and they actually have like a scientific basis, and you're actually able to explain some of it. So maybe that's why it was more out there. Like they talk about blood products, for example.
Yeah.
Which I think there were transfusions and stuff in World War II. This is probably one of the first times, that's really a very commonplace thing. And they talk about blood plasma and this stuff.
Yes. I feel like we often have this discussion about like, is this really science fiction? Like the Invisible Man or like Frankenstein.
There's science.
I know.
And it's fiction.
But I feel it's fictional and science.
Yeah.
Science was there. Gravity was around. But with this one, like it wasn't hard into the science, really. But it was definitely there, and it was definitely a part of it, and definitely informed it. Like they talked about like all the stuff you're saying, like how they find out where it went. It messes up the magnetic pole. They had the Geiger counters to like track it. Yeah. Their discussion of like the biology, which we can get into that. It's a lot of leaps made there, but I feel like it's very grounded in at least the film's logic of science, in a way that like the Invisible Man was just like, oh, it's a potion. Like it could be magic, This, I mean, it could be like a magic monster, but like there was a lot of like attempts to use real, actual, hard scientific stuff, like a Geiger counter to like interpret what's going on, or like explaining biology or whatever, Yeah,
and it kind of goes into some of the themes of the movie. I mean, they do talk about technology a lot, but at the end of it, really, I think this is 6 years after, the United States detonates a nuclear weapon. And so that's probably, it's fresh in public conscience. And you can see how sort of this film's, message is there's some things that we just shouldn't mess with, or you should leave it alone.
Well, I don't even know if like if that's the overarching message. It's just like if it had been safer, like if it hadn't tried to murder them, I feel like they would have studied it more and exploited it.
Sure, but it's like one of the themes where I guess at least Carrington.
Is that the professor?
That's the professor. That's a doctor. So Dr. Carrington is the one who kind of makes this discovery. He's the leader of the North Pole kind of research place, and he wants to study this monster, study the ship, no matter what the cost, no matter what the human cost, etc. And I think with him at least, they're trying to make the point that hey, there's some things that are more important than knowledge. He even has a quote in there where, Carrington says knowledge is more important than human life.
Yeah. And
then again, I think thematically it's appropriate where he goes to the monster and tries to reason with it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of brushes him aside.
Yeah. He's like, we should all, it'd be better if we all died and the monster stayed alive so it could be studied because of knowledge.
And we see something similar to that in the older movies where you have Dr. Moreau and even the Invisible Man, where it's these scientists, Frankenstein, who are putting science above all else. But in this one, I guess because it's sort of tethered to nuclear technology a little bit, it feels much more grounded.
The evil scientist, or like the scientist that goes too far, maybe. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a relationship to like they even make a comment on it in like the movie, like the atomic bomb, was invented. They're like, maybe maybe you went too far with that one.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Because like, yeah, we split the atom and like that was a great thing, right? So yeah, the scientist is actually like kind of the antagonist,
Yeah.
like in equally to the monster, you know? Like he like enables it, abets it. He's an accomplice to monsterism.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's a
know?
monster sympathizer.
Yeah. You know, so he like obstructs. He like keeps going out of his way. Even at the end, like he like
Turns off the generator so that
really like undermines their plan. Yeah, briefly. The scientist, dude, I want to talk about like when they're first studying that he draws so many just huge leaps in logic, or like just huge conclusions from like he studies the hand of the monster that was like cut off. He looks at it. I guess he sees that it's the way it's composed is like more like vegetable, like
plant-like.
yeah, there's not like direct artery, even though like plants have like xylem and phloem and stuff, but whatever. He looks at this monster man's hand for like a second, it seems like in the movie, like 1 second. And he's like, yes, it's like more like a plant. So it's smarter than us. It's better than us. It evolved in a society that was free from like the chains of sexual desire and emotional desire, thus being superior to our own species. Like he just kind of like stands up and starts talking, giving this whole like lecture about like how this thing is amazing and like better than us in every way. We can learn so much from it. He just looked at this like, it's like, oh, this looks like a potato. Anyways, like,
Not just that, it's, you know, this hand, it fell off because the monster was fighting these dogs while it was escaping. And so it had some blood on it. And then eventually the hand like starts to move. And immediately the doctor's like,
yeah.
What's the temperature now? It's because the temperature got higher and the hand's now able to absorb the canine blood. It feeds on blood. It feeds on blood.
Clearly what happened was the arm was cut off. It was too cold to absorb the dog blood, but now that it's warmed up, it can absorb the canine blood, thus enabling it to move. Thus, it came here to feast on us. Thus, it's like, holy.
In a book, maybe the hand could move, and then 4 chapters later, somebody could come in and say, after extensive research, I've discovered that,
Right.
and that would make sense. But in this, it's just
Yeah, and it's not like a huge deal for the movie, but like
No.
I was like, dude, like this is nuts what you're doing. I think in the movie they wanted someone to explain, like, you know, the unique biology, physiology of this thing and whatever. It makes sense. They wanted someone to explain it. It's a movie. It can't take like hours to like, well, we sent it off and we split it off and sent one piece to this lab. And, you know, it's not gonna be like that, obviously. But I think they just kind of sidestepped it by saying that he won the Nobel Prize. Did you catch that?
yeah.
He's a very like, so basically they're just saying like, hey, this guy's super smart, so that's why he can figure all this out in like a microsecond, which I was like, fine, whatever.
Let's talk about the creature, right?
Okay.
So, because there's a few things that get mixed up in here. The creature, when they first see it, it's in that block of ice, right? And it looks more like a Roswell alien, I think. You know, it doesn't look like a human.
I can't really see it that well.
No,
but
but at least it doesn't look very human-like. And
it looks like Frankenstein.
but in the ice,
In the
it
ice,
doesn't.
yeah, nah.
And when they're first describing the monster, because, you know, like I said, the first half of the movie, it's mostly the characters describing what's happening more than us, the audience, actually seeing it, right? Everything's a lot more, scary, spooky. But then when it does escape, at the end of the day, yeah, it is just like a dude in a suit.
Yeah.
You've never seen Red Dwarf, but it looks like a Crichton. Like it just looks like a tall dude in a suit, which is what it is.
That's what it is.
6'7" actor. And really, my problem is if you take away Carrington's dialogue entirely, what do you know about this monster? And the answer is absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And the things that he says, you could make it, you know, you could show it instead of telling it. Maybe you can show the dog blood, you know, being like corny, you know, being like absorbed into the hand or something and like bringing life into it. You could have shown a lot of the things that he said, or some of them, and let the audience kind of make those assumptions, or so it doesn't feel like such a leap. You know, it might be correct, but the audience doesn't have evidence for, I guess, his assumptions. And then without his words, the monster, it just is another monster.
Yeah.
Like there's not much difference between him and Frankenstein in terms of just how they act and what their personalities are, what they bring to the screen. Yeah. But unlike Frankenstein, it's not even like a striking visual for this guy.
True. So you're saying that they had to have that in there?
I'm saying that without Carrington's explanations, the creature is even more boring, but it's not ideal because I would like to have seen maybe some of the things that he was saying.
Yeah, I'll agree. It would be more interesting if like it was like trying to hide from them a little bit until it got stronger or something. And so they would like find the evidence of like its doings and try to interpret, its nature from that.
I mean, what it did is intelligent. Like it takes away the oil just to take away their heat, and then it's going to come for the generator. I guess what it does is ascribed intelligence by our cast or by the other characters.
But like, for example, there's a part where like it kills these two scientists and like hangs them up in the green room and like drains their blood, I guess. But it doesn't really do any, like that leads to nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just kill them. And we know because of Carrington that it feeds on blood.
It's not like it got stronger, or at least clearly stronger, or there was more of them or anything like that.
And you know what? Let's just talk about that. This plant feeds on blood? Human blood or blood?
Doesn't make any sense.
Like it knew it was going to come to Earth and have blood. Like it landed at the North Pole. Like what was the plan here? Like if there was no blood, what was the goal?
I mean, also let's not even get into the part where like it evolved as a big potato plant man, but it is created to feed off of like mammalian blood.
I mean, let's assume, like Carrington, that on its planet, animals are the plants, and the plants are the animals.
Yeah, but the thing is, animals are much more complicated than. That's why we're the animals and they're the plants.
It's a complicated plant.
That's why I'm greater than the cabbage, is because Also, the other part about it is that the doctor is like obsessed with this creature. Mm-hmm. It displays nothing that suggests that it's It behaves more like a wolf or like a beast,
Yeah, when it's actually on screen, it does nothing intelligent.
Like,
off screen, very intelligent, highly intelligent, better than us in every way. But on screen, it's just Frankenstein.
He's like, you're going to kill our new god? And it's like, just like smacks him around.
Yeah, he's like, you're wiser than all of us. Surely.
You're right.
Yeah. That's electrocuted. You don't want that.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been anything. It could be like the equivalent of it could have been like a freaking like prison bus for them that crashed on the North Pole.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. Well, anyway, whatever. These are all kind of like just minor nitpicks. It doesn't really.
I suppose. I mean, initially I liked it that way that they like told and didn't show because it adds to the mystery. But like once they actually showed the monster and he escaped, about halfway through the film, my interest in the film dropped significantly. Because all this mystery just kind of led to some tall dude. Eventually it kind of came back because it's fun to see how they're going to catch it. And I think they did that well. But, the mystery, those elements of it tapered off very quickly.
I'll say the creature design is pretty uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really just a tall guy. And it's in black and white, so you can't even tell if he's green. Like I know, whatever, it's made in 1951. They have to... The movie was a lot better off when they barely showed it, right?
And they even go out of their way to say, hey, turn off the lights so the creature can't see us to make the actual film more spooky.
But at the same time, you can't have a whole movie and not show it.
Sure.
You had to show something eventually. And I don't know what, like...
I mean, you're working with plants, and plants are wild. There's so many, I think, imaginative things that you could have done with that.
But like the 50s technology at the time for making like costumes, I don't know.
What I will say is cool is the effects that they used for the plants when they were actually growing them. So Carrington takes some of the seed pods from the main creature and he grows them with blood plasma. And I think the way they did it is they probably had like inflatable balloons and they kind of put flower dressing around that. And they just kind of...
they're like moving.
Yeah, they're moving. And Carrington has one of his doctors take a listen to it with a stethoscope. And again, ascribing properties that we, the audience, don't, have firsthand experience with. He says, what does that sound like? And the other doctor says, well, almost like the wail of a newborn child.
Yeah, asking for sustenance.
Mm-hmm. And then Carrington's like, that's exactly what I thought.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, why would plants from another planet evolve to have the same kind of...
But in this case, it's such a simple thing. Like, you could just have those kinds of sounds and just... When he has the stethoscope on the plant, just...
Oh, would you really want to hear that? Do you think that would be better?
No, it doesn't have to be like loud or like really in your face. But just, maybe like a little like light noise in the background. A little bit.
The fact that those plants make noise at all is dumb as hell.
I'm okay with that, but I didn't hear it.
No, No. Maybe the doctor didn't hear it either. He was trying to be. He's trying to be nice. He just read it in his book, like it's like, yeah, it sounds just like that.
I thought too.
It's not crazy to put a stethoscope up to a flower at all.
Yeah.
Sidebar here. You know what I was thinking? When I listen to people talk about movies that I've seen, no one's seen this movie, but what I feel like what people want to hear is them expressing the same thoughts that they had.
Yeah.
So we should say the same things. The things that we think like that.
Yeah.
Our thoughts about we should, because like everybody that watches the movies will have the same thoughts. So we should echo them so they feel like, oh yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, because I watch that stuff all the time.
It's like you want validation for your thought. Like, I'm not crazy, right? I'm not crazy. That was dumb as hell, right? That's what you want. Because if no one remarks that it's dumb as hell, then how do we know? Anyway.
All right. So high point of the movie. So the creature effects, not done super great. But what they did do correctly, and again, this maybe the war talking, is massive bleeping explosions.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, those were well done.
Dude, that fire, like that thing where it bust in there, like that was pretty nuts.
I was in shock. Apparently, that's the first time they used like a full fire body suit, and they went all out. That was bananas.
It was like a pretty chaotic scene.
It was insane. Like, I don't know how.
Like, what the hell?
I can't imagine them filming something like that now.
I assume that like 3 people got hurt behind the scenes. I don't know, but like, it didn't look very controlled.
Not at all. Dude, they just had kerosene. I mean, they probably just actually did it. And this dude just in a fire suit, which maybe they made his creature design around the fact that he needed to be in a fire suit.
Maybe that's true.
But he comes in and just like kerosene, boom. Whole room goes up in flames.
Yeah, dude. Like,
and then more kerosene.
She's like hiding behind a pillow, and he like swipes it with his like burning hand, and it like catches on fire. It was pretty nuts.
And the explosion with the ship in the beginning too
was pretty cool. Yeah,
it was a controlled demolition of ice. That was neat.
Yeah. Oh, there's one random thing I want to talk about. But have you noticed movies from this era? It seems like they like this shot where there's like a bunch of people gathered around looking at a thing. Have you noticed that? They use that blocking a lot, where there's like when they're in the airplane cockpit and there's like somehow 8 people in that shot. Like they do that a lot. But
it's good because they're all interesting. It's not like they just stuff everybody in.
I'm not saying it's bad, but to me it's like a marker. Like, this movie's from 1950. I feel like now it would be like you'd cut like in between all the characters, like in separate cameras.
I'll be honest, I appreciate that shot a lot more.
I don't dislike it or like it. It's a marker to me. I'm like, yeah, it's always like these older movies, they always have it like that. The acting was very, again, like modern.
Very modern. I mean, I think the dialogue is probably the standout in this.
Did you notice they had a lot of like where people talk at the same time?
Exactly. So I think a few of the actors mentioned that was maybe a little bit difficult for them to work with, but
what was the point of that?
I liked it a lot. I mean, it feels like you're there.
I guess it feels more natural.
Maybe you compare it to like Alien, but all these sci-fi movies maybe where you see sort of like locker room scenes or everybody just kind of hanging out, doing whatever. The hustle and bustle, it made the movie, I think, go by faster. It was exciting. It's fun to listen to, and there's some good jokes and stuff in there. So
I think it's like, and there's like a timeline of like transition between like, for film from the beginning till now, like from more play-like dialogue into like just very lifelike dialogue, And so this is like part, like you never have overlapping lines in a play.
Right. And if you do, it's like a very,
very specific, intentional thing. It's not like, oh, that's just how people talk. And then like movies, it goes from that like stage play to like just people talking.
Like they're just kind of letting loose and you're part of it, is how I feel. And, along with that, there's like furtive glances every now and then between like Hendry and Nikki is her name, that sort of stuff. Even when other characters are talking, there's more going on.
She had like an interesting energy, but like, again, it's a woman from a 1950s movie, so she didn't really do anything.
No, unfortunately. And she even asked like, hey, can I come? And then Carrington's like, no, you stay here. And then Hendry,
maybe in 30 years, sweetheart.
And then Hendry like looks back like,
yeah.
But I think it was a very likable cast. I like all the army officials, even the news reporter, they were all very fun.
Yeah, they were.
Happy-go-lucky folk.
Dude, they took it all pretty well. All things considered.
It feels like, yeah, the events that happened didn't really affect them for more than 5 seconds at a time. Like they had the memory of goldfish.
They survived that being attacked by Martians.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, well.
Like at the end of this movie, they're in the same situation as Ripley at the end of Alien. And you remember how she was
Oh God, yeah.
side by side. Like that's how they should feel. And instead it's just them like in that, blocked off shot, which is, again, this is another example. You have the news guy in the front giving a beautiful ending. Like he just kind of sums
Keep
up what
watching
happened.
the skies. I didn't know that was from this movie.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then you have a few of the army guys behind him. And then when he talks about the captain, then, the two army guys kind of part and you see the scene in the back. So that kind of static block or shot, I think it leads to those kinds of movements, which I think are very, very pretty. But, that's them at the end of this movie, not, panting, like sobbing in a corner because of the terrifying ordeal that they just went through.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would be.
Yeah, like anybody would be, right? What else you got?
We all love Top Gun. And, the planes in Top Gun are what, like 30 years old or something?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And we love that. Like as an audience, like that was cool. We got to see this technology and really we just got to see it in action and those things were cool. And clearly like there's an appetite for that. And in this movie too, right? Like we see those shots of the plane with the skis for the wheels taking off, landing, and it's just really interesting.
That's probably very high tech at the time.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure it was.
And they just showed it. And that in itself, it's not like speculative science fiction or anything. It's something that exists, but it was really cool. And just showing that was I don't know, kept my interest. And compare that to like the Things to Come plane, where now because of World War II, I think this is what makes it more modern is because after World War II, so much of the technology is kind of what we have today that, it just looks like what we're used to. And then just some other things that I guess added to it is, it's just real stuff. They filmed it at Glacier National Park. They filmed it inside like an ice storage plant.
Oh, right. They built like a warehouse or something to keep it at 25 degrees to get because it was very important in the story that like the power was cut. So to have them breathing and showing the kind of, what is it? It's a condensation,
I think.
I don't know enough about science. Is that what it is?
It's not condensation. It's perspiration. No, it's
all right. That's why you can see your breath when you breathe out. Yeah, that makes sense.
You breathe and
probably the water vapor in your breath is like
it's hot and then it cools down. Yeah.
I'm going with it.
Like it condenses on the outside of like air conditioning units for the same reason, I think.
See, that I don't understand.
Well, it's hot and then it.
No, the glass of water is cold, presumably, if you're doing it right. So the water in the air condenses, like it cools down, so it condenses there because it goes solid, liquid, gas.
So they were breathing out this plasma.
Right. Yeah, okay. Plant-like material.
And so, yeah, I think that, and then they added like good atmospheric sound effects, which I appreciated.
The music, what do you think about the music? It was not used a ton, but it was
It was effective.
It was
the crescendo, like during certain points was.
But it was kind of weird too, to like kind of throw you off.
Like every now and then.
Kind of like weird, like synthy kind of shit.
It wasn't overpowering.
No, not usually, no.
So, overall, like I said, I think this is a very like logical film. It goes like start to finish. Like we found a thing. This is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. And I kind of understand the steps that they take. I think, unfortunately, as like a sci-fi venture, again, like I said, I like asking bigger questions. And the film doesn't really ask bigger questions. It's more of like a scientist telling you the answers to those questions, sort of, or his interpretation. I think at the time, it did well, but Asimov, apparently, I guess, talks about everything at one point or another. Didn't like the movie.
I think he said it was the worst movie he'd ever seen. I think that was the literal quote. I think people were complaining that it wasn't scientific enough or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably why Asimov didn't like it.
There wasn't much it just didn't ask bigger questions. It was more like it had the answer ready. It was like, we're more important than science, sort of, and we don't really care. Like,
it wasn't like grand.
Yeah. And it didn't give, it made Carrington out to be an obvious bad guy, right? You never really felt, you never really like sided with him. And maybe if they had done that, it would have been a little bit more complex.
If it was a little more gray, who was right or wrong.
Yeah. Maybe the creature, if you could see maybe more from the creature's point of view, and the creature was never trying to hurt them, but it had to defend itself, something like that.
If they made it more like the creature killed them, but it wasn't like on purpose, it was like just it's a plant that vines go places and like it trapped one of the guys in the vines, but it's not like it's not trying to hunt them down and murder them. It's like this is just part of its life process, you know?
Then we have to save it, and then there's some difficult decisions to be made. But in this one, it's just not only like are the army people like, well, we got to kill it. Like there's no room
like
for
that's
discussion.
Cut and dry. That's a monster.
But then also like watching it, you're like, well, yeah, you got to. This thing's just coming after you. So
it's
what are you gonna do?
literally trying to like hunt you down and murder you with its claws. You have to kill it.
And so this is based on that novella, and then in The Thing, it's kind of based on the same story.
You talking about the newer one?
Right, the 80s one by John Carpenter, which I think might be in this book as well.
Is it?
Maybe. That story has a lot more of like a psychological element to it, which is missing from this one. So I'm interested in watching that one and kind of comparing.
Oh, man. Not fair.
I guess. Well, in this term, it's only 30 years later.
Yeah, but like a lot happened apparently.
Yeah, Metropolis to this as this is to The Thing.
Yeah.
You're right. And then, like I was saying, part of this in the beginning, at least, and you're saying it too, the way it's so tropey, it feels like maybe an episode of a show. So apparently at some point in my life, I've already seen two of those influences. There was like an X-Files episode in which like the same thing happens. And like the first season, which I must have watched like 10 years ago and don't remember. And also Deep Space Nine had an episode similar to this one, which I apparently don't remember.
That happens a lot, right? Like you see a thing that's influenced by something in the past, but then when you watch that past thing, it's now boring.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've seen that before, but it's like, that's where it came from.
So it's funny. I wonder if you took like a 25-year-old from today's time and just threw him into like one of these movies or something from the past, they'd be like, wait a minute, this is stupid, because they just know the tropes, which are based on, human emotions and everything, like how they would just fare. They'd be like, that's stupid. That creature's going to do this, or well, you didn't consider this. Like they just know movies so well that they're able to guide themselves through problems like that.
Random thing, but one of my friends' moms had never seen the original Star Wars at all and had somehow lived her whole life and escaped everything without like knowing anything about Star Wars really. So they watched Star Wars, and so it was funny because my friend who was watching with her mom got to see like the real reaction to like Luke finding out that Darth Vader was his father, and her mom was legitimately shocked because she had no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like she'd seen it for the first time without anything, which is amazing to happen in like 2020 or whenever.
Nowadays, I think everybody's exposed to little tidbits here and there, so probably.
I mean, that's so hard to miss.
Yeah.
I mean, it's parodied so much, but
yeah, Blumhouse is apparently in talks with Universal. Like maybe there's a new version of this coming out.
Oh no, don't do that. The thing is, the 1982 version, the John Carpenter version, is so good, it's so iconic, and like that's really what you're remaking. You're not remaking this. That's really what you're remaking, and you basically can't do that.
Right. I mean, looking at it, it's like, I see these things. When I look at movies these days, there's no reason why a movie made today can't be better than anything that's come before it. If you really think about it, right, we should be able to do all of the effects. We should be able to do everything that they could do, if not better. But it never lives up to old stuff.
Yeah, well, we're nailing all the aspects that money can get right. You know what I mean? Like, it looks great, the effects are great. It's just that, like, the writing, the characters, it's bad. We all know that.
That's just so sad, where it's like, hey, they're going to remake this, and we just know it's not going to be good. Even though there's no reason it can't be. Like, you could make it for a fraction of what it cost back then.
All those things were made by people that wanted to make them. Yeah, they had like passion and a vision. Like, it'd be as if like someone came up to us and like, hey, here's a bunch of money, make a... Not even that. I don't know. It'd be like as if a group of people were all paid like mercenary, like to make a whatever, like a book or something, right? Like, it wouldn't be as good as one person who like wanted to make it, really wanted to make that book, was passionate about it. You just can't fake that or buy that, really. It just doesn't,
I guess,
come out.
Yeah, also, even not cynically, but obviously, I guess, if you're going to remake a thing, you're remaking it to make money. So if you're going to do that, you're going to shoehorn in whatever
let's like the only reason you're remaking it is because you want to like draw on that like nostalgia appeal for marketing.
Yes, you want to exploit the nostalgia to make money.
I mean, I don't know why they remade this in 1982. I don't know why they remade that.
Well, I think it's just so different from the novella that they felt that there was a lot missing that they could maybe better create.
I mean, that movie's like seems to be almost totally different than this. Like the broad strokes are there, but like really,
so apparently it's in the novella, it's a shape-shifting alien with telepathy.
Oh, well, that's hard to do, huh?
That's very different from what we just watched. What we just watched is maybe like the first like
it's like
10% of it.
It's like Frankenstein came to Earth.
Sure, but it can but having shape-shifting and telepathy, which they kind of make some telepathy jokes in this one. Like, can it read our minds? But by having that, it becomes immediately more psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we need to mention this, but this, film came out 70 years ago. We talked about how so many things are modern. Like casual racism.
Oh my God. The most casual and the most racist. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was like a gut punch. It was like, what?
I came out of nowhere. I didn't even like catch it on my first viewing, but in just like a throwaway line, like as they're getting ready to like go after this monster, one of the characters just says like,
looks like a lynching party. Visitors?
Yeah. The character, by the way, whose name is Tex.
It's just thrown in there.
That was crazy. I was like, was that necessary?
So wild. So wild.
Because like, besides that, pretty much not.
I mean, this is 1952.
It's so just like
before like the Civil Rights Act and everything.
So it's so like blatant, abrasive, and like clear, and it's just like and then it just kind of goes back to normal.
Crazy.
It's like I'm just watching a movie. Holy shit! And then like you're just watching a movie.
Yeah. So just a reminder how I mean this.
In case you forgot, it was from 1951.
But it's so weird. Sometimes some things are so current theming, and then you realize like, whoa, like the attitudes were so different, and then you wonder like, this really wasn't this long ago, but like culturally it was. It's just
I don't know, like the people that were involved were about 100 years ago, probably, right?
The people who were involved were born 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Sure. This is a time when maybe the people acting in it would be our grandparents.
Yeah,
maybe grandparents,
maybe.
great-grandparents. Like that's kind of great-grandparents or grandparents. One of those two. It depends, but
yeah,
not so long ago, but it feels like it sometimes.
Well, anyway.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. What's next? Hey, next up is... All right. So next up is the day the Earth stood still. So we've made it to known sci-fi, and then we got It Came from Outer Space, War of the Worlds. I mean, I don't know what that is, but got some good stuff coming. This movie wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't. No.
And I think these are going to keep up that same energy.
You know, when we get into like The Fly, I really don't want to watch that.
Really? I'm worried. I'm worried that the later we get, like right now, we're talking about stuff that, like no one really watches or cares about or will critique us on.
Yeah.
But, once we get to like Jurassic Park or something and we're giving opinions that are like, well, we're going to have to deal with a lot more inertia.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. But
I think when we get to later things, we'll have to just focus more on looking at it through a lens of science fiction, because we can't comment on like 2001 as what it, you know what I mean?
What it actually is in
such
society.
A huge, we'll have to like kind of focus on that, like in this context, like what did it add? Where did it come from? Yeah. What is it, Yeah, Jurassic Park, 6 out of 10. Book was better.
Yeah, I don't think we can rate these. Maybe after we're done with all of them, we can like rank them at least, or like put them in that like tier list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that we can do.
If we hit our subscriber goal, we'll have a
subscribe
a YouTube live chat where we put it in a tier list.
Subscriber goal is 25.
Oh,
Point is 0. 25 people.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I'd be thrilled. I would legit be thrilled.
I think you are overestimating how happy you will be for that number of subscribers to do that much work.
We've done so much work for no one to see. How is that any different?
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, good stuff. Good movie.
We're gonna leave that all in.
No, we're none of that in. Another quick tidbit. Apparently, like 11% of Americans fought in World War II.
Like
at the time.
like we're in the army or actually like really fought?
I think like in the army.
I guess it makes sense.
Pretty wild though, because that probably means like 40-50% at
Honestly,
least
I figured
like
it would
were
be
affected.
higher. I figured it would be like everybody now.
I don't know how many 18 to 26-year-old men there were. Like, but it's interesting because you just see how, like, 10% of people, that's, if you include then their like spouses and 2 kids, it's like
Dude, maybe
40%.
10% of people literally fought, like deployed. Like that might be true. Because I'm like, I feel like everyone was involved in some form of.
Sure. But regardless, I think there was a lot, everybody was like closely linked to the war. So I think it was,
Yeah.
it's like 6 years. This is like,
Dude, what it gave us was a thing that was so valuable that we'll never have again. It's just like an enemy that you don't have to care about at all.
Yeah.
Watchmen, right? That's what that whole thing was.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, I'm packing up, clearly.
All right.
No. Bye.
Bye.
Wherever they are, watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.